Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this mini course in derivatives. This is Eric, the voice behind markets. For these particular videos, I'll explain more of the conceptual framework behind derivatives rather than dealing with complex mathematics or niche applications. You see, even though I'm all about learning a new tool and start using it right away, sometimes you need first strong foundations to tackle big problems. To make these explanations as clear as possible, each concept is illustrated with useful and practical examples. So, let's jump right in. For those of you who are new to the topic, derivatives are financial instruments that allow you to cover risks, carry out arbitrage, and speculate either for investments or trading. Hence, the idea behind this course is to introduce complex concepts in a simple way, from term operations like forwards, futures, and financial options to over-the-counter products such as structured notes. Chances are that some of you already know about the basic types of derivatives, but now let me ask you, how many of you are familiar with structured notes such as caps, floors, collars, and even CFDs? But don't worry, I got you covered. In addition to understanding the operation of these derivative products, the objective is to understand the benefits of leverage, the counterparty risks of OTC derivatives, the function of the clearinghouse in organized markets, the settlement of daily profits and losses, and other highly relevant topics. So, dear viewer, unless you have been living underneath a rock for the past 100 years, you have noticed that the financial markets have undergone a great evolution and have achieved a very high degree of sophistication. From financial entities, governments, and even companies and families, often referred as economic agents, the need to cover risks has led to the appearance of new products that allow these new and delicate needs to be met. So, in order to meet the growing demand, the modern derivatives market is born within the financial markets. This is an active market with great growth in terms of product variety and trading volume. As a matter of fact, the idea of derivatives is intuitively present in everyday life. For example, in the price agreement in the purchase of your favorite car or even a home, except if you're a millennial, or when subscribing to health or phone insurance. However, when talking about futures and financial options, on many occasions it sounds as if we're talking about something that is far away from our reality. That is why it's important to know the main concepts, how they work, and how risk is transferred between market participants. Just as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, I will do this without going into sophisticated portfolio strategies that can be carried out by themselves or in combination with other products. In the future, these foundations might lead us into more advanced topics. Therefore, once the content of this mini course has been covered and simulated, you, dear viewer, should be able to 1. Know what the different derivative instruments are and why they are used for. 2. Familiarize yourself with the professional jargon and terminology used in these markets. 3. Know the differences between organized derivative instruments and non-organized derivative instruments or over-the-counter, aka OTC. 4. Acquire a basic notion of how to use derivative instruments to improve risk management, both in hedging and investment operations. 5. Analyze the results of the different exercises that we will cover and face a financial problem in which derivative instruments must be used. 6. Learn about the different structured notes traded by financial institutions, accompanied by the effects of the benefits and the risks they offer. 7. Be aware of the advantages and disadvantages of the different means of issuing structured notes. And finally, 8. Being able to identify the type of exotic options that are usually integrated into the different structured notes. Yeah, a somewhat ambitious goal, but I believe that with enough time and commitment, it can be achieved. But before I start, I need to disclose something because I want to avoid falling into the role of another financial guru that is so popular on YouTube. While I don't have extensive experience with all of these financial products, I trade several of them personally, and I am well acquainted with how they are traded at an institutional level. In all honesty, in some topics I will lean a little in the financial literature, but always with the intention of making the mini course as useful and practical as possible. I will list my references at the end of each video. Well, let's not waste any more time. To begin with, the derivatives market, as its name indicates, is where the price of the products contracted in this market derives from the price in the spot markets of a reference asset or underlying asset of that derivative product. This definition may sound too technical, but it'll start to make sense as we move forward. The two most common types of derivatives in this market are futures and options. Thus, the price of futures or options on, say, oil, derives or depends on the price of oil in the spot market. In the same way, the price of Apple stock futures or options is derived from the price of Apple stock on the stock market, and so on. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the derivatives market seeks to deal directly with risk. And, as many of you are already aware, both of these financial assets present risks. Some of them are shared, and some are unique to each asset. If we go a little bit back to basics, the reason why it is said that an investment in a certain asset has risk or is risky is because we do not know with certainty the result that it will generate, and more so because the final result is produced at a future date. In this case, the past price of an asset does not add risk, but the estimate of that price in the future does. The list is endless. The future price of oil, Apple stock, the dollar, real estate, gold, and Bitcoin is not known. Hell, not even college tuition fees at this point, which means that there is risk whenever you make an investment in these assets. It is precisely for this reason that derivatives products were born to cover that uncertainty. In short, derivatives are instruments that are justified by their ability to hedge risk. Yeah, everything is nice so far. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. You see, derivatives are essential in financial management, and the development of the markets and their products has greatly facilitated trading in derivative instruments. This in turn has brought other types of players into the game. They are the speculators and the arbitragers. One would think that this structure is part of modern markets, but the reality is that this dynamic has been present for several centuries. In the 17th century, in the tulip bulb trade in Holland, or in the rice trade in Japan, forward contracts were already negotiated. In fact, the first case attracted such an obscene number of speculators that the future price of a single tulip bulb contemplated in a forward contract exceeded more than 10 times the annual salary of a professional craftsman. No wonder people later dubbed this period as Tulipmania. However, not all forward contracts contemplated meaningless assets, oh no sir. At a time when commodities were difficult to extract and in much more modest quantities, having a healthy and balanced market could mean life or death for an entire society. The fact of being able to know the price that would be charged or paid for a crop or raw material in the future represented peace of mind for both the producer and the buyer. The derivatives that somewhat resemble those traded today did not appear until 1848, when the first modern derivatives market was born in Chicago, the famous CBOT or Chicago Board of Trade. Similarly, crops and commodities have ceased to be the center of attention within the financial markets. The underlying assets have become so vast and different that today there are multiple derivatives that look as if they came straight out of a Walmart. In raw materials or commodities, you can go from oil, steel, and timber up to orange juice, frost, and spare ribs from a beef carcass. There are also debt and interest rate instruments. You can find them in stock indices, in stocks themselves, in forex, and now even in virtual money. But this seemingly endless financial buffet offers something beyond variety, and that's a spicy mix of risks. That mixture includes, but not limited to, credit risk, or the possibility that the counterparty does not comply with the agreed obligations, liquidity risk, That is the risk of not being able to get out of a position or turning your asset effectively into cash. And market risk, that which is contributed by price fluctuations or volatility. Out of these three, derivative instruments are intended to basically hedge the latter. But wait, there's more. If these derivative instruments are listed on an organized market with significant volume of transactions, they can also minimize the risk of credit if within the same market there is a clearinghouse that is responsible for the compliance of all parties, and liquidity if the high trading volume makes it easier to open and close position in any derivative. Also, and just like with humans, not all derivatives were created equal. While all depend on the price of another asset, some offer greater flexibility and even customization. In the first part, we're not going to cover all the details, and for now, it is enough to talk about the most used derivative instruments. These are forwards, futures, options, swaps, along with a couple of structured notes. In fact, there are those who could argue that there are only three types, but we will talk about more about that later. Finally, derivative instruments don't trade themselves. Yet. We still need to cover who would use them and why. As noted in the introduction of the video, derivative instruments can be used by those who want to hedge or protect themselves. Hedgers in particular are exposed to unwanted price volatility risk, and they seek to pass it on to someone who is willing to accept it. It is here that speculators appear, that is, those who expose themselves to a risk that the hedgers do not want in the hope that the price change will benefit them. As we will see later, there is a great incentive for speculators since they can enter a position with a small disbursement if compared to the total effective value of the contract. That is, these markets are very attractive for speculators since they carry out their buy or sell operations with high degree of financial leverage. And of course, we cannot leave aside our beloved arbitragers. We're talking about the very professional market participants who trade to profit from a price mismatch between different derivatives markets, or between the price of derivative instruments and the spot prices of their respective underlying assets. For example, they can profit from a difference between the future price of oil and the spot price of oil by simultaneously buying and selling in both markets. This group is characterized by identifying and taking advantage of profits without risk, and, as a result, the effects of the arbitragers' operations is that the prices of those markets in which they act return to equilibrium. Well, dear viewer, this is the end of the first video of this mini course. Any questions or suggestions you have, please let me know in the comments. Otherwise, if you like the video, please like, subscribe, or share it with anyone you think could be useful. This is Eric from Markets, and I hope to see you in the next video.
You hear me, babies? Good. Real good. Adios.